TheRacingBiz.com and the Maryland Horse Breeders Association present our annual. Is this annual, John?
Do we do somewhat annual? I mean,
annual-ish?
Annual-ish, we'll call it.
All right. Handicapping forum for Maryland Million 2023 coming up Saturday, October 14th. 12 races on the card, topped by the Maryland Million Classic. For older runners going 1 1/8 miles on the main track. I'm Frank Vespi, joined here by Mackenzie Pfeiffer. Mackenzie was part of our broadcast team at Timonium, a horsewoman and handicapper. And Mackenzie, when we had you at Timonium, we sent you up in the Ferris wheel. No Ferris wheel here, but thanks for joining us.
I'm terribly sorry to disappoint. I know this is not quite the same scenery.
No, not for you either. So, but we appreciate your being here. John Piazzik with the Maryland Horse Breeders Association also handicaps Maryland on the racingbiz.com every day of live racing. John, welcome. It's your time, man.
Yes, this and previous week are the most pressure-packed times of the year because you got all the out-of-town bettors flocking in and betting. And, I've been following these horses all year long, so I have to look good because I should know what I'm talking about. Hopefully I do, and we pick a few winners.
Yeah, pressure's on. Let's see what we can do. Gary Quill used to handicap Maryland for the Racing Biz as the GQ approached. Now he's moved out of state, but we won't tell anybody about that. But he's still got lots of Maryland garb. Gary, welcome.
Thanks, Frank, as usual, for letting me be part of this handicapping session. And it's Maryland Day at the races, and it's always great to see the crowd at the track and the celebration of horse racing in Maryland.
Celebration of horse racing in Maryland. Let's talk just quickly about the conditions of these races. These races are for Maryland sired horses. That means that in a number of races you see also eligibles and you wonder, gee, there's only, for example, in the Classic, 8 horses in this race. Why do they need also eligibles? Those also eligibles are Maryland bred but not Maryland sired. They will only draw in if the number of Maryland sired horses in the race drops below 8, and then they can only draw in one by one to get it back up to a field size of 8. Right, John? Is that right?
Mm-hmm. That's correct. That's how it goes.
All right, that's how it goes. That's the man that has ready access to the press guide for Maryland Million. So we
had a little query off camera, and I went straight on a MarylandMillion.com, where, of course, if you want to find any info you want about the Maryland Million, that's where to go. And I dug in, and we answered our question, and all was well for the next few seconds.
Yes, until we got confused again. He's sitting under the Maryland and New Jersey flags. Gary, you're waving Maryland garb around here. The Maryland bred, the Maryland
horse, Maryland bred. You'll see them all on Saturday.
All right, the Maryland Million Turf Sprint going to be race 8 on the card, 3:07 post time. Easy for me to say. 5.5 furlongs on the grass down to the second wire at Laurel. So, dear jockeys, please keep riding all the way to the second wire. This one's a rematch of the Ben's Cat Stakes, which saw Witty edge Sky's Not Falling in a really exciting horse race, a really good race. And I think 2 of you are looking for those 2 horses, I think, in the hunt again, but one of you is going to go in a different direction. We'll start with you, John Piazzik. You're going to land on Cynergy Star here to spring the upset.
Yeah. I mean, I have a lot of respect for both Witty and Sky's Not Falling. But, Frank, going into the race, you and I kept saying if it's ever going to be the day that Witty wins, it's going to be in the Ben's Cat, because it was that kind of field that he looked much the best on paper. He should have beaten him. And at least on the Brisnet scale, his figure dropped quite a bit. He had been going in like the low 90s, and he went down to an 85. So he probably should have won that race a little bit easier than he ended up winning it. So I just wonder, maybe he just doesn't have that same, winning punch that you kind of need to win these kind of races, and he just almost got lucky. And Sky's Not Falling has been kind of in and out of good form all year. I think he might want a little bit longer in spite of being the defending champ. My top pick here is number 3, Cynergy Star for Boncelli Racing, a son of Northview's Great Notion, bred in part by the Bowmans. I really liked his race last time out in the Meadow stable back at Colonial on the 2nd. Just gobbled up ground late, surged 4 wide, ended up losing in a 3-horse photo to Determined Kingdom, a very nice Virginia-bred grass sprinter, a real veteran of the circuit. It was his first grass start in a while, but even then he had been in ascending form on dirt. He beat his second level allowance offer claiming field on dirt pretty easily. 2 starts back, just missed behind Indian Lake, a nice allowance class runner 3 starts ago. He's in his best form. He's proven on grass. He has a good late kick. I think if you want to look beyond the big 2, he's your man.
Now, Mackenzie, you land on Witty to double up there and win this race, which would make it 2 consecutive turf stakes wins for him. How do you see this playing out?
I think that he needs to keep going to the second wire, but that's really going to work in his favor here. This is a horse who does most of his work in the stretch, and I think that he'll be happy to spot them a little bit, or he might go with them. But he's really going to do his work in the stretch, and that second wire might make all the difference. It's a really, really active family. He has a big sister who's a little bit smaller than him named Caravel. And you can't mention one without the other almost. So I like that coming out of that race, he has just one work on the page, whereas Sky's Not Falling has been a little bit more aggressive as far as getting 2 works in. But another one with just one work to freshen up is Cynergy Star, who I agree with you is pretty dangerous. So I do have that one underneath as well, John. We'll see. It's the 2 of us going 1 and 2, maybe.
Well, Gary thinks he's going to have something to say about that. Gary, you see Sky's Not Falling turning the tables on Witty here. What makes the difference?
I think cutting back to the sprint distance in that last one was still a big effort. And I mean, both Witty and Sky's Not Falling didn't have the cleanest of trips in there. We're going the extra, half furlong. Sky's Not Falling won this race last year with Paco.
No Paco this year.
No Paco this year, but I've been always a fan of Victor Carrasco, and Victor picking up this mount, I think, with the outside post, he'll hopefully get a cleaner trip. And, I agree with both Mackenzie and John as far as Cynergy Star. And, we seem to have, those 3 horses in the top 3, like they're the only ones in the race. But, Sky's Falling has proven that he can run the sprints. And I think the first time back at a sprint, he got his legs under him again, realizing that what he needed to do. And hopefully this time around proves to be that the last one was a prep.
Now, Gary, you're also using, I want to go to the bottom of people's tickets here. Actually, John, let me grab you one of the outside horses here. We'll talk about When I Get to Heaven, because you have him in 2nd. Gary's got him 4th. What do you see from When I Get to Heaven?
Hey, kind of the other Mike Trombetta horse in this race. And it's funny that you mentioned...
He's going to be the higher price Trombetta, for sure.
For sure. And it's kind of funny how... we talked about, it's the second wire. Got to make sure if you don't misjudge it, because that's exactly what Luis Garcia did on this horse back on June 11th. And notes in the comment lines, rider misjudged wire. I bet him that day, and I have never seen a jockey take longer to come back, like in the gallop out. I've never seen a jockey take longer to come back on the paddock than Luis Garcia that day. He took his sweet time bringing that horse back. He's out riding him this time. That's Mauricio Caramanos has the mount. He ran pretty well over the summer at Colonial. Ran 3 big figures in a row, kicked away and beat a Virginia certified field pretty nicely, lasting through fast tractions back on July 20th, then just missing its open company next time out, earned another big figure. Had a bit of a wide trip last time out in the Meadow stable. Obviously, it's going to be another wide trip here from post 14, but he's still ran pretty good figure. He's shown a lot of ability on this track. Obviously, if not for his jockey's follies, he would be 2 for 3 on it. And I think he's a pretty good upset contender in a race that, as I mentioned, if you go beyond the top 2, there's a lot of opportunity.
One of the and he's also he's a horse with some speed, John, and I don't mind in these short sprints. I don't necessarily mind if you have a horse that's on the outside, if they've got some speed. A lot of times it's the horses in the middle that kind of get the squeeze, is how I feel. So the fact that he's tactical enough probably ought to have a pretty clean trip from out there, don't you think?
Yeah, I think so. Gotta imagine Kermanos is, as long as he breaks well, Kermanos is just going to send him straight to the front. Hopefully, he'll be in about the 2 path, kind of on or near the pace. And if he can work out that kind of trip by the opening 8, he should be in good shape.
Mackenzie, you also like a horse that's out in the parking lot, the 13 horse Prince Pear. Tell us about him.
Well, and this mostly comes out of the race, the Ben's Cat that we're looking at for Witty and Skies Falling. This horse, I think, would have been involved, and maybe if he had a bit more ground, we would have seen him. I don't think he necessarily had the best trip. He really had to come. It was not the easiest thing to navigate. He actually did beat When I Get to Heaven a while back, so I don't put a ton of value on that. But if we look back to May at Pimlico, he finished in front of When I Get to Heaven. So if we're looking at those two on the outside, I'm going to go with this one. He's had just a light maintenance work to keep him fresh since that last start at Pimlico. But I really liked what I was seeing as far as him improving for owner and breeder Richie Blue.
All right, Gary, you got anything else you want to add to this?
Yeah, when you asked John what he saw when he got to heaven, I thought maybe he had a near-death experience and it already saw something. But
it sounds like he might if they, if it's raining on Saturday.
Nah, anytime Special K gets a leg up on a horse and it's running on the turf, you gotta take notice.
And that would be the 14 horse, and Derby Bill thanks you. You'll have to send him a royalty check for using his nickname for Hermanos. All right, that's it. The Maryland Million Turf Sprint, race 8 on the Maryland Million Day card.